There we go. So welcome everyone to the February 2022 edition of the Tools Call. Hi, Paul. So we have a light agenda today, as discussed in Slack. With that said, we're also going to have room for comments at the end, but let's get started. Going from top to bottom, matters arising from the previous call. I don't think there was anything necessarily that's not represented elsewhere on the agenda, so I think we can skip that. Next item is IDE editor tools. So yeah, Dan, you want to start with your PSA?
Yeah, this is a very quick one. It's just a PSA because one of my tools started failing when people started using workspaces. And the reason is because now if you're inside a workspace and you list modules, it is going to list all the modules in the workspace, whereas before it was either no module or one module. And in my case, I was doing format with the Go version. So now I get multiple Go versions separated by new lines. I do expect that if tools run into this, they will fail, but still FYI, some tools might need to be updated.
Technically speaking, it did always list all of the modules in the workspace.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
For what it's worth, we ran into this also on our Go imports, which does the same, pretty much the same thing. It does the Go list. Hello? Oh, God damn. We ran into this on Go imports, which does a Go list -m, expecting there's only one main module, and that assumption is no longer true.
Yeah. So thank you for your PSA, actually, because it caused us to notice something as well. Moving on, update editor instructions for Go.work. Thank you for adding this. So whoever added this, I'm assuming that was you, Dan or Paul. Or Paul, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, this is a release blocker for Go Please. So it's a high priority for us. The gist of this issue is obviously we're going to update VS Code, and I've updated like coc.nvim as I was experimenting with Go.work. But we, with Go.work, we have a new heuristic for finding the correct workspace route for an LSP client. Now, in some LSP clients, you specify the workspace explicitly, so it doesn't apply to them. But for many others, the workspace is derived from like, certain magic files, like a .git folder or the go.mod or whatever. It's generally configurable. And so we want to go through our documentation, which spans many, many LSP clients, and verify that the presence of a Go.work file is accounted for, if possible. So I have sort of identified a few high priority clients and asked people to help out because I'm not familiar with every LSP client in the world. But anyone who's listening, if you use a different client or just want to help out, please see that issue linked in the agenda for instructions. I think generally it's a very easy change, but it requires understanding the configuration of each client. Thank you, Paul. And then the next one is a proposal for GoDoc, which is very interesting and exciting. I'm not sure that we have anyone here who can speak about this. I mean, I've sort of skimmed the proposal, and I think I probably need to give it more thought, but generally it looks good to me. Is there anything anyone wants to say in particular about it?
I only added it as an FYI. It's sort of related to tools, but it is also a long proposal. So it was more of an FYI than anything.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we'll want Go Please to probably interpret this in Hover and whatnot, but I think that's a thought for 3 or 4 months down the road, if and when this proposal gets implemented.
My only thing that might be worth mentioning, I don't know whether it is it worth having explicit, being able to identify a parameter in a function? At the moment, you kind of can't. It's only global variables or package level variables. Is that worth it? it's I made a comment on the issue about that, and I don't know, because it can't really be a link, but maybe it's useful anyway.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I have to think about that. It could be useful. Particular type parameter, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I started writing dot comments in that style, just to get in the hang of it, for later, and I found it natural to do that. But and then it was pointed out by a colleague that no, that isn't part of the proposal. It's like, oh well, maybe it should be. Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, it would be interesting to be able to extract documentation relevant to a particular parameter, perhaps, for a tool. Cool, thank you. That is everything we have in the agenda for IDE and tools. I will add something, sorry for not adding it to the agenda, but I will add an addendum myself, which is that, the next release of GoPlease is the release that we expect to have full support for 118 features, of which there are several relevant to the editor. So we're about to land an analyzer that analyzes arguments to f.fuzz, analyzes fuzz targets for correct signatures. We have implemented some support for go.work and have more planned. And obviously generics is an ongoing project. But I think generics are in reasonable state in GoPlease at the moment. So our plan to cut, so actually because of the late change, which we may discuss later on in this agenda, there was a late change to the work file flag that we need to handle in GoPlease. Because of that, the next GoPlease pre-release is actually blocking the 118 release candidate. So we'll probably fix that today or add support for that today, and then cut a GoPlease pre-release today with a goal of cutting the third and final pre-release next week. So unlike other GoPlease releases, we're cutting multiple pre-releases, encouraging people to test them out. I'll probably ping something in the GoPlease Slack as well, asking people to test. But for anyone listening, anyone in this call, please do file any issues. Please do use GoPlease with 118, test it out, and please file issues or ping me or whatever. We have only, it's tough because especially for generics, we don't have people regularly writing generic code. So any sort of exposure we can get via the community is really, really valuable. So that is all I wanted to say. Moving on to package site. I'm not sure if we have a representative of the package site team here, but we can try to field these questions or discussion. The first item is an issue added by Dan for added inversion and the fact that it does not account for new packages. That sounds like probably just a bug. I don't know. Is there anything you want to say, Dan?
I do think it's a form of bug. I added it here as a way of seeing if anybody has thoughts or anybody disagrees with my reasoning there. But essentially, it's that if an API was added with the package, the UI doesn't show anything. So it's almost like the API had been there for a long time or forever, which is not true.
You mean if the package is new in the API or something?
Right. So if version 1.2 added the whole package and its APIs, then those APIs don't say anything about added inversion. So it seems like it's been there forever, right?
Yeah, that seems like it.
And my thinking is the added in information should be next to the API because you might only be seeing that, but it should also be at the top of the package because a package might also have 0 APIs and it could still have some effect through like an init function or something like that.
So naively, wouldn't that mean that every single API was added in a version? And would that be noisy?
That's a good point. I'm not sure if there's an alternative.
Well, you could detect first version versus subsequent version.
Yeah, I think so. Because, for example, if you jump from a version 2 to a version 3, major version 3, I mean, the majority of them will already be existing from day one, right?
I would argue that it only matters for minor versions, and therefore not minor version 0. So you should only mark any API that was added in a non-zero version minor, regardless of major.
That said, I could see an argument, often, it depends on how big your major version changes are, but often a major version change might just be, or it could be just a relatively small addition to, change to the API. So maybe.
Yeah, but major version's a new module, so everything in the module was added.
True. Good point.
Makes sense. Sorry about that. Okay. If no other comments, we can perhaps move on.
Have we got anything about PKG sites showing generics yet? It'd be really nice to see the generic packages in Godoc. But...
my understanding is that change has been made, but we have not reprocessed packages. I may be wrong. I'm sorry if I am wrong, but please try publishing a new version and see.
Okay, so I have to publish a new version for it to show. Oh, okay, fair enough.
I think so. And we might at some point do our bulk reprocessing, but at this point, I mean, we'd want that to be a naive bulk reprocessing because we don't have a mechanism for detecting which packages should have had generics. So it actually takes a while, and I think we've been holding off to see if there were bugs or whatever before we do that.
Okay. Actually, that's an ongoing issue I have with package.site. It's just seeing my new version, it seems there's loads of friction in doing it. I have to pull it from here, but then I have to click the button and wait, and then I have to wait for a bit longer, and then I have to refresh, and it's just, it feels awkward.
Understood. Yeah. I mean, I think once everything is supported, it won't be quite so awkward.
Another suggestion, which I should probably make an issue, but it'd be nice if the version that you can put at the end of a package site URL supported all the versions all the version styles that Go get also supports, right? So like it supports at master, but it doesn't support like full Git hashes, for example, as far as I remember. So that kind of thing.
I suspect that's derived from the proxy. I think that might be a proxy issue, in which case it wouldn't be likely to be fixed in package site.
Okay.
There is one more item on the agenda for package site, which is already dropped building at Go 117. Yeah, I think we'll fix this. I will talk with Jonathan. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but I did publish the first version of the type params package, so and he can use that. But I agree. There's no particular reason to drop support for building at 117. Moving on to Command Go. The first item is a general item, which is oh yeah, so we mentioned this earlier. Workspaces are removing the work file flag. Michael, do you want to introduce this a bit?
Yeah. So this is admittedly change pretty late in the cycle. But we decided that the interaction between the Go work goenv output to see what the status of your work file is and the dash work file flag was too confusing. We originally modeled them on mod file and go mod, but we realized that that was a mistake and we shouldn't continue the mistake further. So we're just going to have one environment variable. The work file flag is gone. I submitted the CL this morning. You just said the environment variable. I think that's closer to what most people want. I think people would usually, they're working in a workspace and want to keep it for a period of time. So yeah, that's that. So if you're using the flag, I guess when you upgrade your update your Go to tip, you know, watch out.
It turns out the beta really is a beta.
Yeah. We're making this change like 2 weeks after we were supposed to have released, but you know, whatever, no big. Okay, that's it. PSA done.
Thank you. I suspect it's probably not going to break any tools. But
Other than Go, please.
better, yeah, other than Go, please, but we can fix that. But better to make the right decision if we have an opportunity. Okay, moving on. A couple proposals or issues. The first one is Command Go stamp the pseudo version in builds generated by Go build. I think that's Dan.
I didn't add it, but I can briefly summarize it. Essentially, this is people who say, okay, VCS stamping works, but when I do a local Go build, the module version for the main module is still missing. And there's a bit of discussion in that thread about, well, if we deduce what the local module version is, that might be not a module version that's been published. So then you would break the line with module versions in terms of now you can't trust whether a module version is real or not. So I think that original proposal is controversial, we could say. I've done a bit of a counter proposal towards the end, which is, what if we had an API called like main version or own version or something like that, that first tries to use the module version. If that doesn't exist, tries to use the VCS version. And if that still fails, it uses some form of generic fallback, like maybe the build ID. But the idea being that we wouldn't call that a module version because it may not be. And the history behind that idea is because I want to implement that for my programs because I want to start using the VCS info. And I think I would use those three fallbacks, those three levels of fallbacks. I think it's a reasonable thing to have in the standard library, but I'm happy to be convinced otherwise.
Okay. Thanks for that intro. And apologies to whoever did add that to the agenda. If anyone wants to say anything additional, please speak up.
Yeah, I'm just going to add, I think there's some interesting discussion going on the issue, and I'm glad to see that discussion continue. I think there's not, I don't think that there's a foregone conclusion about how this proposal will turn out. So if people have insights into it, certainly we are interested to see.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The next item was added by Dan, and this is Go cache permission errors may be hidden and affects Go packages. So yeah, Dominic filed this saying that Go packages doesn't propagate permission errors. Dan, do you want to say anything additional about this?
I only added it here because I was thinking whether it makes sense to prioritize this somewhat, because at least it did make me lose many hours at work. It's one of those bugs that is kind of hard to track down, and I imagine it might not be that difficult to fix.
Michael,
Because I believe the underlying error is that Go list prints the error to standard error without actually including it in the error field of a package in JSON, something like that.
You mean to fix this on the Command Go side, right? Or the Go packages side, or both?
I guess as far as I care, either, whichever
Okay.
makes the most sense.
I mean, we Brian and I have talked about like our priorities for 119 in the Go command, and fixing like Go list -e issues is one of them. I wish there was a nice place to like group all of those issues together, but we're gonna try to find as many of them as we can and fix them. A milestone, sure. yeah, or we were using projects for some things. But yeah, a lot of our issues are just like free floating and unconnected, and it's hard to find them all. But yeah, that is something that we want to look at for 119.
I would suggest, I see this issue is titled Xtools Go Packages, and I would say it is important for anything where the underlying failure is like list E doing something bad. Please make sure that there is some issue filed for command Go so that we can, like, with list-E in the title somewhere.
Yeah, then we can find it when we do a search for command Go list -E. Okay. What do you mean by that comment on the chat?
Oh, I mean that I think this is a command Go bug, but Dominic filed it under Go packages, so I thought he got it right, but it
I mean,
could well
it's
be.
both, right? Like there's a bug in command Go, and then there's also like Go packages doesn't have a hack to work around that bug like we do for a lot of other command Go bugs. So both of those can be seen as bugs, but I think if we want to fix the underlying issue, like it's easier for us to track it if we have it in command Go, because that's where that underlying issue is.
Just updated the issue title so that it
Thank you.
satisfies their search parameters.
Yay!
Okay, moving on. Command Go test should always fuzz a bit even without fuzz. Oh, this is for 119, I assume.
I added this one. It's not really about external tooling, but I guess it's still under command Go. I don't think we should talk about it here because it's quite complex, but another FYI, interesting proposal.
Yeah, I agree with the proposal, I think, superficially. But I was not familiar with it until 10 seconds ago.
I intuitively agree with the proposal, but I philosophically disagree with the proposal, so I should probably add a comment on it.
Okay, so then I was responding out of intuition, not out of philosophy. So I have
Yeah,
to
so
work
like
on my philosophy.
it's great to get more fuzz coverage of stuff, but on the other hand, like non-deterministic test failures are pretty unpleasant. And so like having the default be deterministic test failures is probably a good thing on balance.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Does the first failure say what the seed was? So can you reproduce?
It might, but you can't skip a fuzz failure that's like not checked into the repo because the set of fuzz inputs that trigger that failure are potentially infinite. And so you would have to add a test skip for like the entire class of potentially failing inputs, and that's really complicated. And so like you can't, if you find a failure and you say, I know this is a bug, but I don't have time to fix it now, and you don't want it to add noise on your builder, then like if you're fuzzing by default, then you don't have any other recourse. Whereas if fuzzing is opt-in, then you can say, I'm just going to turn off fuzzing for now. Or like, or you can say, I'm going to check in this failing input and also add a skip. So I remember to fix it later, but it doesn't add a bunch of noise to my build while I'm not ready to deal with it yet.
So what you really want is skip if running tests rather than fuzz directly, or something along those kinds of lines.
Yeah, but that's what we have today. Is we already skip fuzzing tests that are not part of the checked in corpus if we're not explicitly fuzzing.
So we do run the tests, the run it on the checked in tests automatically. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. There is a standing generics item, which I suppose falls to me to talk about. The update on generics is that since we last met, there were several issues in the type checker that kept us very busy. It's part of the reason why the release is so delayed, but I think we've resolved them all. Unfortunately, between that and GoPlease preparations for 118, I didn't have as much time as I had hoped to work on documentation. So mea culpa for that. But I will say that documentation is my highest priority at this point. I should also say that, Dan, I saw you commented something in the generic Slack about the timing of the release. I don't know exactly when the release is going to go out, but I suspect that the release candidate will go out very soon, like today or tomorrow. So we don't have any more release blocking bugs for generics. Similarly, the Go Please pre-release is going out soon, and the 0.8 release will go out next week. So as a consequence of that, I have time, and I will be working on documentation, updating X example, and things like that. Hana comments, package set with generics. Maybe, yeah, so the indexing status, I'm not sure if it's just the beta that is updated or if the generic support is actually in the non-beta as well. So that might have been an error on my part. Anyway, back to generics. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about generics at this point? I mean, I know that tools are, not all going to be updated for 118. I think that's okay, but unfortunately, we'll have a lot more work to do. Our work is not over yet. My work is not over yet. I will say that the last time we met, we spoke about the XX type params package. I got some reviews on that. Ian Cottrell also helped out to review and merge an initial version of that. I didn't get a ton of feedback. So yeah, so I merged it because I think it might be easier for people to try it out, but decided to leave a comment at the top of that package saying this might change. I don't want that comment to remain forever because I really do want to commit to an API. But if you try it out in the next week or so and find that there's something ergonomically wrong or even something that's misnamed, I don't think it's too late to change that at this point. It really becomes a problem if these constructs start, penetrating the ecosystem and an API change will break everyone. But I think we probably have a little bit of grace period. And that's the reason why I left that comment at the top of the package documentation. So please, if you're interested in using this package, please try it out and offer feedback by opening an issue or pinging me. I think we can adjust. Cool. All right, moving on. So that sort of concludes the main agenda, and we move on to the MISC section. Dan has an idea for GitHub issues, saying that GitHub issues labeled Go Please should avoid the tools label. Otherwise, the tools label is almost entirely Go Please content. I agree, and there's no way to exclude Go Please results from tools searches. I imagine there is. So is there not
you can. I guess
harder?
it's a matter of which one is easiest. It seems to me like using filler labels.
It's always easiest for us to do nothing.
That is also true. I mean, I don't have a strong opinion here. It's something like I was going to look at the tools label to see stuff that I might be forgetting for this call, and it was just page after page of Go Please stuff. So I thought it's a bit silly that we apply both. That's all I mean.
Yeah, I agree in principle. Go Please implies tools. There's no reason in particular to have both labels. I don't know how difficult it would be to change this behavior in Gopherbot. And there may be cases where it's not desirable. Like it might be more complicated than it's worth. Like if something actually does affect X-tools and you want both labels to apply and Gopherbot's heuristics are wrong. I don't know. I will think about it, but yeah, we've also thought on this note, we are planning to eventually move GoPlease to its own repository. And if and when we do that, most likely when, there's a question of whether or not to move issues out of the Go issue tracker. And I have gone back and forth on this question. We have two examples. We have VS Code Go, which uses its own issue tracker, and we have Package Site, which uses the Go issue tracker. I think at this point, I'm leaning towards leaving issues in the Go issue tracker so that we have a single source for them. And I mean, often GoPlease issues relate to Go issues, and it's just convenient to have one search bar. And also, if we ever decide to, if we ever say that GoPlease is done, it's easier to have all the issues that come into the Go issue tracker so that they can be triaged along with other Go issues. But anyway, long story short, if anyone has opinions on this, we'd be curious to hear it. I do think it makes sense to have VS Code with a separate issue tracker because it's sort of a separate product. Next question. Dan asks, even with the assumption that we're on track to release 118 in 5 weeks, RC1 plus 4 weeks, the merge window for 119 will be minuscule at 4 to 5 weeks tops. Do we expect to be able to do any feature work for it? Well, first of all, I am not sure that it will be RC plus 4 weeks. I think there's precedent for it being RC plus less than 4 weeks. So I can't speak to the exact date, but I would not be surprised if the RC period were less than 4 weeks. That said, it still leaves us with a really small window for 119. And I think we're saying that 119 is going to primarily be a polished release. But I also am not authoritative in this regard. For external people, what are you thinking? Are there features that you want to get into 119? Are you concerned that you shouldn't be filing proposals now? How are you perceiving this?
Yeah, the reason I raised this was more of a maybe communications point of view, because I don't think many people realize how late 118 will be. And I know some people that have ideas of what things should go into 119. And this is not restricted to tools. Maybe there should be some sort of email to Golang dev being like, hey, FYI, the 119 release will be small, because otherwise we would delay 119 by also a couple of months.
I will raise that concern. I think we could and should communicate more as well. And for what it's worth, we don't plan on 119 being delayed by 118. Okay. Brian actually commented, and I did not read his comment, which is essentially what I said, which is that 119 will be mostly a patch release. Okay. So that's it for the agenda. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about? Anything you're working on or any additional questions? Now is the time. Okay. Date for the next call. Well, I guess 1 month from today. Or 4 weeks from today. 4 weeks today, I'm assuming it's not a leap year. So 4 weeks from today is the 16th. I think, can we tentatively plan on that? Does anyone have any concerns with that date? Okay. Sounds good. All righty. I will update the tools call. I will escalate your concern, Daniel. And we need a volunteer for the next call. A volunteer or or Dan.
I think by elimination, because we want a non-Googler, that should be me.
Well, there are other non-Googlers here, but yeah, if you are willing to do it, I'm sure we would love it. Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone.
See
Nice
ya.
seeing you. Yep,
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.